Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday's episode of Media Matters. I am not Dave Davis. I'm Eddie Gibbs, and Dave is earning a well-deserved break in some sunnier clime somewhere in the Mediterranean. I won't go any further than that because I don't think he wants me to tell everyone where he is. But we hope you're having a great time, Dave, and best wishes to your family as you're enjoying this well-deserved time off. You really do graft it, and we've noticed our YouTube numbers are fallen off a cliff since you've been away. So David and I have decided to get together this morning and try and remedy that somewhat. So we're here with Media Matters, and I suppose, David, it's one of those days. It's summer. It doesn't feel like it where I am. It has the last 2 days. It's absolutely chucking it down outside now. I think you've still got some sun, you say, beaming in through your window there. It's a bit cooler, but the UK summer is one of those movable feasts. It does seem to make up its own mind day by day. So I'll not let the rain outside get my spirits down too much, because yesterday we had a game. I know you didn't go. I watched your video later on the evening. What were your thoughts on what you saw at Preston yesterday? Because that's obviously the ideal place to start. And we appreciate that some people may still not be ready to engage with some of the content we're going to discuss here today, and that's absolutely fine. We're here to just offer our take on what we've seen and try and get back to as much of a normality as we can. So we'll have the utmost respect to everyone for what you choose to do and how you choose to grieve the sad passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. So, David, yesterday at Preston we saw quite a remarkable series of events. It was on ITV, so obviously there would have been quite a big audience for this. What were your initial impressions of what you saw both before, during, and after the game? We'll talk about the match separately, but let's initially focus on what we saw on the human side and the tributes that were paid to the brothers.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I was there, just for full transparency as well, is just to explain that as well, is because the press box was oversubscribed, which I think, showed the huge interest in this as a story. I mean, usually for a pre-season friendly, I know Liverpool are a big club, but you wouldn't see a press box rammed out at a stadium the size of Preston's for a pre-season friendly. So that was, a marker really of how big a story this is, and the fact that it goes far beyond just being about Liverpool. It's about wider football, isn't it? So that I wasn't able to get in, unfortunately, because it was packed out. But I think, like I said, it just shows the interest in that. And yeah, watching from afar then on TV and interest in I think the kind of what I was thinking all the way through it, and I kind of talked about this on my YouTube video, really is just the sheer class that I think Preston showed. I mean, they were handed such a tricky situation there, because obviously they just think that when they schedule this, it's just a run-of-the-mill pre-season friendly, good preparations for them. And in the end, it turns into the first step for Liverpool players and staff and fans to grieve Diogo Jota. And I thought every decision they made around it was just absolutely spot on. They got the tone perfect. They showed great support to Liverpool fans and staff and players as well. That move and rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone" was just kind of spine-tingling, wasn't it? And then, the special program they produced, joining in with the Jota song on the 20th minute, just the kind of the graphics they showed as well, showing Diogo and his brother Andre as well. Just everything they did was absolutely spot on, really. And I think Liverpool have done extremely well in a very difficult situation since this has happened. But for another club who is not as kind of tightly connected to it, an outside observer almost, to get everything right as Preston did, that is not easy. And I think huge credit to the people behind the scenes at Preston for getting that right. Huge credit to the fans as well of Preston. I just thought you just saw class from top to bottom in the way that they dealt with that difficult situation yesterday. And then, hats off to them, really. And I guess thank you from everybody associated with Liverpool, really.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where to get everything right. I mean, obviously there would have been some discussions about whether this game was going to take place or not. That would have happened earlier in the week. And I think Liverpool and Preston came out quite quickly and said that it would happen once the players returned to training. So I suppose some preparation's gone on within that time to make sure that they nailed it in the way you just described. And I don't think there would have been a chance for a hiccup, but you have to feel that Preston perhaps and Liverpool discussed some of these things beforehand of what they were going to do, and Liverpool were in approval of absolutely everything that happened, and Preston pulled it off to an absolute T. And not just the club, I think their fans as well. I think it's very easy to bring tribalism into these things, you know what I mean? And for them, it's the excitement of seeing their players back. They had a couple of new signings in their ranks yesterday. They would have been quite excited to get their pre-season underway. And in the end, it turned into something like a vigil for the fallen. And it wasn't a church; it was a football stadium where people go to enjoy themselves and have fun, and their fans to show up and treat that with the dignity and the class that they did. I think that has to. And we know that we've had Preston guys on the podcast before, and they're excellent guys. They really do put their heart and soul into their club. They have the feeling. I know they're a championship club, but they almost have the feeling of a family values club, and they do. And I think there was no better place for Liverpool to have gone and commemorated their return to the football field yesterday. And I just echo your sentiments there that I thought Preston were absolutely class. And there was a few moments where you well up. I don't know about you, but I still welled up a couple of times when the captain went over with that wreath where he walked out with "You'll Never Walk Alone" play and walked right through. And it wasn't just, he didn't just put it down. He didn't just put it down and turn around. He stood there, arms behind his back, and it was almost like, someone said to me, it was almost like playing the last post, the last night of the proms or something like that, where or Remembrance Sunday or something like that, you know what I mean, where the ultimate respect is shown. And I think that he absolutely nailed that yesterday. And then the players, obviously Liverpool players and Preston players, came out towards the end of "You'll Never Walk Alone." And I think if we turn our attention to the Liverpool players in particular, for them to have walked out to that, and we remember how we feel now. We didn't know Diogo Jota personally, you know what I mean? We feel we did because we went through the highs and lows of his Liverpool career with him. But those guys did know him. They were his friends. They were his colleagues, you know what I mean? And players are used to almost the sliding scale of football where players come and go all the time. You know what I mean? You expect that when you get into professional football. But this isn't about come and go. This is just go. And it's such a raw and stark go. You know what I mean? He's gone and he's gone, and that's it. That's the end. You know what I mean? It's not like you can be in WhatsApp groups together and stuff, pick up the phone. So for those players to come out and perform the way they did, and I think there was that moment where you maybe remember it, where it was early on in the game where I think Dominic Szoboszlai appealed for a corner. It wasn't a corner, but he still put his hand up and he appealed for one. That made me feel, okay, we're back. We're back. You know what I mean? All the singing's going on about the football continues, and the Liverpool players know that the football continues. And I think throughout the 90 minutes, both sets of teams, because Liverpool played two teams, obviously, in the different halves, it was all about the football. But then that moment at the end where the players came and they stood and they remembered with the fans and that dividing line of the goal in between to the stand, I think that showed us that this is something that where the club, the fans, the players, the manager, Preston were unified in grief, and football as a whole really is unified in grief when we saw all the messages that came through.
Yeah, that was incredibly moving at the end, wasn't it? The fact that it was just on, and everybody, I don't know, it's just kind of, because football fans, you kind of limited in the way you can express yourself, and a lot of the way is, because you've got to act as a collective, and the only way they could find to do that, to show that, to support, to basically say, because the message was there within that song was, we are with you through this. We are going to support you. We feel this too, and we know you're hurting, and that you've given everything to us. So we're going to just do what we can to give you something back in your time of need. And I think that was the message sent by that. It was just a perfect moment, and I really think it's great to see that the players understood what that was as well, and that they could really feel that. So yeah, it was an incredibly emotional moment, really, and yeah, there's going to be a few of those over the course of the season. The first Anfield game, the first Premier League game, the first Champions League, all these, kind of milestones that are coming up. They're all going to be firsts without Diogo Jota there. And I think yesterday's was a really important one, and a tricky one. But I think everybody involved handled it in the best way possible, because, it's so easy to forget that Diogo Jota would have played in that game. He would have been there. So it's just crazy to think that, really. But that he wasn't there, and we took that first step forward, I think is a positive, really. And I think it says an awful lot about the players that they were able to do that. But they'll need that support to continue over the coming months, that's for sure.
Yeah, before we close off on the tributes, I think it would be remiss of us not to mention as well the players that scored the goals, and the way they used Jota's celebrations. I wrote on Substack this morning that it didn't feel rehearsed. It felt very spontaneous, and in the moment, it felt like that was their way of paying their own little personal tributes to their teammate, to the fallen. And I think that Cody Gakpo and and Darwin Núñez were utter class. I mean, and even Conor Bradley's celebrations were so low key. Preston's celebration for their goal so low key. I think the players obviously realised the situation that they were in. It wasn't. I mean, it was a pre-season friendly. Let's not forget. But even so, yeah, it's easy to get carried away in the moment, and none of them did. And they were. And I thought those celebrations were very somber. And it was another moment where I almost welled up seeing the way Darwin and Cody in particular celebrated their goals.
I think it's one of the things I want to say about that as well is that it's kind of, again, it's why I saw it as a real positive that this game went ahead. I think putting this off would have done nobody any favours. You know, the tears and the difficult moments and the standing together and everything that we saw from this game, it would have had to happen at some point. So it is best to get it done as early as possible, as painful as it might have been for some of those players, and to do the celebrations and to, as I say, see the moment with the fans at the end and have You'll Never Walk Alone being as poignant as it will ever be. So I am really pleased that they went ahead with it, and it went as well as it possibly could. Really, I think it's a positive, because you do, will never be forgotten, Diogo Jota and what has happened, but you do in your life, and everybody who knows this, who has lost someone, which is basically all of us, you do have to start taking steps forward and getting back to whatever normal looks like now. And I think this game is an important step towards that.
Yeah. We'll move on and we'll talk about the game a little bit now. And I noticed in your video, you joined the chorus of enthusiasm, shall we say, for Rio and Gamoa. It was, and the commentator as well, Stephen Warnock, at times was raving about him. Now, I have seen some stuff come out since the game, mainly on social media. Some fans saying that, well, why do we need a left back? Why do we need a left winger when we've got him? He's perfect. Just put him in. It doesn't really work like that, does it?
No, I wouldn't like to see a 16-year-old have that much pressure put on his shoulders, because as exciting as he is, and he is very exciting, and Liverpool have got big faith in him, and I do think there's a few appearances on the table for him this season. You don't want to be asking him to make 30 or 40. That is just not fair expectations to put on a 16-year-old. But I think, to push back on that as well, I think there's justification in the excitement around him. There's a reason that Chelsea was so unhappy that Liverpool had pinched him away, and why Liverpool put together a big sales pitch to get him in the end. And that centres on the fact that he's just a remarkably talented young footballer. I mean, someone's made the comparison with a young Raheem Sterling yesterday, I think, in the comment section, and I quite like that comparison. Actually, kind of, he's not the tallest or the strongest. I mean, he may be in future, by the way, but at the moment, he's got that kind of low centre of gravity, those quick feet. Raheem Sterling became a very different player under Pep Guardiola in the end, but his original kind of iteration when he came to at Liverpool was a little like this, was running at his fullback, dribbling, go inside, outside. He's got those really, really kind of nice soft feet on him. I liked that comparison. And again, he was another one who came through at a very young age and was able to impact the first team. So, you hope Ngamoa can do similar things. But he was, fact is, that's his kind of second first team appearance we've seen him in now, and he was very, very impressive again. Played a key role in the opening goal, and just kind of terrorised his fullback for 45 minutes. So really, really enjoyable performance. And as much as we want to be careful about hyping young talents, I think if Liverpool are willing to throw him in, we've got to be open to talking about him. And he was just very, very good, wasn't he? He was one of the standout players, I thought.
Yeah, another one that I thought had a good game was Trey Naoni as well. It was he obviously the last time he played was in the Plymouth game. That was the last time we saw him, which was a day for us all to forget. But I remember back to last preseason, and he was the one we were all excited about. And I don't think it's wrong for us to still be excited about him. He's got that turn of pace. His off-ball work is incredible, as well as his on-ball work. He really does look like he's got the potential to go all the way as well. And I don't want to overhype these youngsters, but I also noticed on the commentary, I watched the ITV commentary yesterday, and they mentioned about those two potentially being great loan options for a club. Now, I'm sure they're great loan options for a club, but I don't see it happening with either of those two. I think they're that special that Liverpool will want to keep them around, certainly for now, certainly for this season, and try and dip them in and out when they get an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if either was loaned out, to be honest, because I think with the Trey Naoni again kind of showed in that game that he's more than capable of getting League Cup minutes and FA Cup minutes. And if Liverpool go on a run in either competition, there's a few starts from there. And also, maybe he hasn't actually made his Premier League debut yet, which kind of is surprising, I guess. But so there's, maybe chances as a substitute there to come in, and it's clear. I think I expect Wataru Endo is going to stick around this season. I think he will pick up some decent minutes as he did in the end last season. But I think he's not seen as a long-term option, whereas Nyoni definitely is. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's possibility in certain games for him to come in and pick up Premier League minutes, even in Champions League minutes. Particularly in the Champions League, as well, as we've now found out that finishing first means absolutely nothing. So, I think there's chances for both of them, and I think typically with those types of players who are close and in and around it, there's a desire really to, rather than loan them out, is to keep them around the group and keep them in training every day. So I think with Nyoni yesterday as well, by the way, completed 100% of his 29 passes, which is
Wow.
for a kid of his age is just remarkable. So. Very, very excited about both of them, but so are Liverpool, and that's why they've been around the first team picture for such a long time already.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. I mean, there will be movement, and we will talk about some of the transfer stuff after this. But those two, I can't see them going on loan. I think Arne Slot will be keen to keep them around, keep them involved in training, because there's development opportunities for them, as David just mentioned, through the amount of the sheer scale of fixtures Liverpool are going to have. There's going to be opportunities for a couple of them, and I'm sure it's going to be those two. So we'll wait and see what happens there. A couple of the other performances, obviously, we saw Mamardashvili for the first time. Abiding memory I'll have of him is he's even taller than I thought he was. There was one where he came in for a cross and he punched it, and it was like his body was up, from his waist up was higher than the person's head next to him that he was jumping up above. I mean, the man is a monster. He's an absolute giant. What were your initial thoughts on him? I know he only played for 45 minutes, but what did you think of him?
Yeah, he didn't get to do much, did he, in the end, unfortunately? I say unfortunately, I mean, that means Liverpool were playing pretty well in that first 45 minutes, but they conceded more shots in the second half. First 45, I think Mamardashvili was just kind of really a bit of a spectator, really, wasn't he? But, important for him to get his debut. And as you say, he looks absolutely massive. I think Liverpool have pulled off a coup in getting him, because to have him come in and do a couple of seasons, hopefully, as maybe the backup to Alisson, or maybe it'll be just one season. We'll see what happens with Alisson and his future. But to have that, and then you think in a couple of years' time that he will be ready to kind of be the first choice, and he looks like he's got all the qualities to do that. We didn't necessarily see those yesterday, but yeah, good to. Yeah, I think on paper a really smart signing, and good to see him make his debut. So I think and I wanted to actually touch on Freddie Woodman as well, actually, who I thought made some really impressive stops in that second half and actually showed a bit of quality with the ball at his feet. I think the goalkeeping department is an area you might have worried about this summer. It's been big changes there. You lose Kelleher, you send Jarosz out on loan, and you say, last season they were very important, weren't they, those players? I mean, Jarosz comes in a Premier League game and does well. Kelleher absolutely massive in Alisson's injury. So it was very important that Liverpool retained the strength and depth there. And I think the early signs are that they've definitely done that, because you'd have no qualms about Mamardashvili coming in on the strength of his Valencia performances. And I thought, Freddie Woodman played at a high level for the last 3 seasons as well. And he's still only 28, and he looked very good yesterday. So lots to like with what they've done in that part of the pitch, I would say.
And we also in the second half got to see two of our new signings, Milos Kerkez and Jeremy Frimpong, both got a run out in the second half. There wasn't too much to make from what they did. There was one moment I thought where we saw, I think we saw Kerkez play on to a ball and he tried to get in and Gakpo couldn't quite find him. But that was really exciting. We don't see that. That's not something we've seen where the fullbacks are so far advanced of the forwards. I mean, that was just like something that we keep saying that was something that we see PSG or a side like that do. We haven't seen much of that from Liverpool. So that maybe just gives us a slight inclination to what Arne Slot may be thinking with these two.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Kerkez's positioning in that moment, you're right to highlight that, because I thought it was that's something we're going to see a lot of. He's inside his opposite fullback, isn't he? And making a run like a kind of winger on the inside to get himself in the box for the pullback. So we're going to see an awful lot of that. And I think what we saw as well from Kerkez, he only gets 45 minutes, but we still get to see the fact he's absolutely lightning quick. He's got the engine to get up and down constantly. He's very tenacious in the tackle, a couple of good challenges in there. And he also tried to head the ball on the ground with a tackle, which was, so he's obviously got the kind of the character and the mentality that you want as well. So yeah, loads to like in just 45 minutes from him. I think he's going to be, he's a signing that I think just instantly improves the starting 11, which is, what you want to do when you're trying to move on from winning a title. You want to make the team even better. So, he is going to be absolutely massive for Liverpool this season. I don't doubt it for a second. And he's going to get better and better as well, because he's still only very young.
Now, before we move on to talk about the transfers and I think things that most people want an update on, we need to talk about some of the absentees yesterday, because there were a few. Without being too speculative, we don't want to say why these guys weren't playing, because they'll have their reasons. You know what I mean? They're going through a massive grief situation. There'll also be guys that have come back at different times that maybe haven't had the same amount of first week training as some of the others. So there'll be all sorts of reasons. And as I say, we don't want to speculate. I just wonder if you have heard about any injuries in the squad, the likes of Florian Wirtz, Virgil van Dijk, Alexis McAllister, Alisson Becker, Luis Diaz and Ibrahima Konate. We didn't see any of them yesterday. They weren't even on the bench. So do you know anything about any of those individuals? I know some stuff has broke about what Florian Wirtz was doing. He was training at the AXA yesterday while that game was going ahead. So I did see something about that this morning. But have we any injury concerns? I mean, McAllister's the one that obviously springs to most people's minds. He didn't play towards the end of last season, and he didn't represent his country over the summer. Do we think he's back fit, or is it a case of he may be out for a little bit longer?
Well, the messaging for Liverpool was that it's just kind of, we're in the period of pre-season where people will miss friendlies. They're just managing everybody's load. Obviously, the start of pre-season was slightly disrupted with everything that's gone on. So, and we know that they are generally cautious. We've seen this quite a lot, actually, in pre-season. We saw it last summer as well, is the players just missing the odd friendly for unspecified reasons, really. They're doing a lot of kind of load in training, and they've got to be careful about how they manage that. And if anybody, you want to look after them and you don't think it's worth taking the risk of, involving them in a friendly, then they won't do it. So no big concerns there as far as we're aware. I did see, again, just going into speculation here, so please don't take this as me saying this is the case, but I did see some speculation around a potential Alisson injury, and I wonder whether there's maybe something there. Let's just keep an eye on that one, whether he goes on tour or not. I might be completely wrong on that. Like I say, that's not something I'd hang my hat on and write. But just with a couple of things I'd seen, let's see what happens with that. But but hopefully not. Hopefully he's just part of that group and the managing is low. But we'll see in terms of that. As far as we're aware at this moment, nothing to be hugely concerned about. But it was a shame not to see Wirtz in particular, wasn't it? Really, I was very much looking forward to seeing both him as a player, but also where he's going to be used as well. But not too long till the tour games.
Yeah, I thought we might have seen him as a false nine yesterday. That's what I was actually looking forward to all morning. And then obviously the news drops that he's not even in the squad. So we'll have to wait a couple of weeks until they go to Asia now for that. And then I think that after the Asian tour, we're going to see this game at Anfield. Is it two games back to back at Anfield against Athletic Club? Is that what we're expecting before the season starts? Okay, so we'll go from talking about.
I'm looking forward. That's good.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just it slowed down a bit. I was just saying, I'm really looking forward to that game. But also, if people in the comments want to let me know, do I do 2 videos on that day, or do I just do the one wrapping up the 2 games? I'd like to hear people's thoughts on that one, because I've got no idea how to approach that one. So yeah, any suggestions on that are welcome.
Well, I can say, as far as Anfield Index is concerned, without speaking to any single individual that's involved in content, there will only be one. Okay, so